The military training ground stretched wide beneath the midday sun, its barren earth baked into a dull canvas of browns and tans that shimmered faintly in the heat. Rows of soldiers moved in practiced formations, their boots kicking up small clouds of dust that drifted lazily in the still air. The sound of commands barked by officers echoed sharply, punctuated by the occasional sharp crack of rifle fire from distant ranges. The scene was one of disciplined chaos, a world where order and precision reigned amidst the rawness of training. Amid the rigid ranks and stern faces, a young woman stood out, not because of her posture or uniform, which was neatly kept, but because of the incongruous object she held in her hands. Cradled gently, almost like a child would hold a toy, was a small weapon that looked more like a plaything than a tool of war. Its compact size and colorful design betrayed no hint of lethality. To the casual observer, it seemed almost laughable, a stark contrast to the artillery and rifles brandished by those around her. Her presence sparked a ripple of amused glances among the nearby officers. They exchanged smirks and whispered jokes, their eyes flicking between the young woman and the diminutive weapon she carried. Some laughed outright, their voices sharp with disbelief, as if the very idea of such a small arm being of any use in a military context was absurd. The atmosphere was thick with skepticism, the kind that only grows when something unfamiliar challenges deeply ingrained expectations. Clusters of soldiers gathered nearby, drawn more by curiosity and the chance to mock than genuine interest. Their laughter rang out, careless and dismissive, filling the air with a sound that was both mocking and contagious. The young woman remained still, her gaze steady but distant, as if she inhabited a world within herself that the others could neither reach nor comprehend. The contrast between their loud ridicule and her quiet composure underscored the gulf between their understanding and her conviction. What she held was not just an object but a symbol of defiance against the conventional. The small weapon's size made it an easy target for derision, yet it also carried a promise of something unseen by the scoffing eyes surrounding her, a promise of innovation, precision, and a challenge to the status quo. The soldiers' laughter, though loud and confident, masked an undercurrent of unease. The young woman's calmness in the face of derision hinted at a story untold, a truth waiting to be unveiled beyond the surface of mockery. The midday sun beat down relentlessly, casting sharp shadows that stretched long and thin across the cracked earth. Beads of sweat gathered at the soldiers' temples, mingling with the dust and grime of the training ground. The young woman's hands, steady and deliberate, adjusted the grip on the small weapon, her fingers tracing its contours as if drawing strength from its very form. Around her, the noise swelled, laughter, jeers, and the occasional pointed comment designed to undermine her presence. One officer, a tall man with a square jaw and a voice like gravel, stepped forward from the crowd. His eyes narrowed with a mixture of curiosity and condescension as he addressed her, his tone sharp and edged with disbelief. The weapon in her hands, he implied, was nothing more than a childish trinket unfit for the rigors of battle. His words cut through the air, drawing a hush that momentarily quieted the surrounding soldiers, their amusement replaced by anticipation. Despite the derision, the young woman did not flinch. Her expression remained composed, her eyes steady as they met his. There was no haste in her movements, no rush to defend or explain. Instead, a quiet confidence emanated from her, a silent assertion that beneath the seemingly innocuous exterior lay something far more profound. The soldiers, sensing this shift, began to lean in slightly, their laughter diminishing as curiosity edged out mockery. The small weapon, resting lightly in her hands, seemed almost to pulse with potential, a stark contrast to the raucous environment that sought to diminish it. The young woman's presence was a quiet rebellion against the noise, a single note of calm and a chorus of doubt. The sun's rays caught on the weapon's surface, highlighting the intricate craftsmanship that belied its playful appearance. It was a carefully concealed secret, a tool designed to defy expectations and upset the established order. Around her, the faces of the soldiers reflected a spectrum of emotions, skepticism, amusement, intrigue, and something akin to respect, though none dared voice it openly. The young woman's stillness was a challenge and an invitation, daring them to see beyond their assumptions and discover the truth hidden beneath the surface. The training ground, once a stage for mockery and scorn, now held its breath, waiting for what would come next. As the sun climbed higher, the heat thickened the air, wrapping the scene in a heavy blanket that seemed to slow time itself. The young woman's grip tightened slightly on the small weapon, not in nervousness but with deliberate intent. Around her, the soldiers' laughter had all but faded, replaced by an expectant silence charged with unspoken questions. The moment was poised on a knife's edge, balanced between disbelief and revelation. In that vast expanse of earth and sky, amidst the clatter of boots and the murmur of voices, a quiet tension settled. It was a tension born not of conflict but of anticipation, the anticipation that something small, underestimated, and dismissed might yet prove its worth. The young woman stood at the center of this charged silence, the unlikely bearer of a weapon that promised to rewrite the rules of engagement. The scene captured a clash between tradition and innovation, between the known and the unknown. The young woman's calm defiance echoed louder than the soldier's laughter, a reminder that strength often wears unexpected forms. The military training ground, once a place of derision, was now the stage for a silent challenge, one that would test the limits of perception and the courage to believe in the power of the underestimated. In this moment, the young woman was more than just a figure carrying a small weapon, she was a symbol of quiet resilience and untapped potential. The soldiers around her, their faces a tapestry of doubt and curiosity, were unwitting witnesses to a story unfolding, a story that would soon demand their attention and respect. The midday sun bore down, indifferent but illuminating, casting light on a moment pregnant with possibility and poised on the cusp of change. The gruff voice cut through the thick silence like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. The general stepped forward, his heavy boots thudding against the hardened earth, each step echoing with authority across the training ground. His face, weathered and stern, bore the marks of years spent commanding troops and making hard decisions, yet now it twisted into a sneer as he fixed his gaze on the young woman and the small weapon cradled in her hands. The crowd of soldiers around them shifted uneasily, sensing the weight of his presence and the challenge he was about to deliver. "Do you expect us to believe that this toy," he spat the word with deliberate contempt, "has any place here? On this field? Among true soldiers?" His eyes narrowed, scanning the faces gathered around as if daring someone to speak up in her defense. "Show me what it can do. Prove that it's more than a gimmick, or pack it away and save us all the trouble." The laughter that had once bubbled up from the ranks now faltered, replaced by a tense hush. The soldiers' faces revealed a mixture of amusement and disbelief, amusement that the young woman even dared to stand her ground, disbelief that anyone could consider such a small device worthy of military use. The general's challenge hung heavy in the air, a gauntlet thrown down with the expectation of swift failure. The young woman's eyes flicked upward, meeting the general's gaze without hesitation. Her posture remained calm, her breathing steady, untouched by the sneer that curled at his lips. Without a word, she raised the small weapon, holding it with a quiet reverence that belied its size. The soldiers leaned in slightly, curiosity prickling beneath their skepticism as they waited to see how she would respond. "I accept," she said softly, her voice clear and unwavering. The words carried no arrogance, no pleading for belief, just a simple statement of resolve. The general's nostrils flared at her calmness, as if the certainty in her tone was an affront to his authority. Yet, for all his scorn, there was a flicker of something else in his eyes, perhaps curiosity, perhaps the faintest trace of respect buried beneath his cynicism. The squad surrounding them shifted, forming a loose semicircle to give her space. Dust swirled at their feet as the midday sun cast harsh light across the scene, sharpening the contrast between the young woman's composed figure and the doubtful faces watching her every move. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that precedes moments when expectations are shattered or confirmed with brutal clarity. Without haste, she took a deliberate step forward, her hand steady as she adjusted the small weapon's sighting mechanism. The soldiers watched, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. The general's eyes narrowed further, his lips tightening as though preparing himself for the inevitable disappointment. The small weapon's appearance remained an enigma, too diminutive, too delicate to hold any real power in the minds of most. The young woman's gaze swept over the distant target area, a series of steel plates set up at the far end of the range, their surfaces gleaming dully in the harsh sunlight. She took a deep breath, steadying herself as the murmurs of the crowd faded into the background. With practiced ease, she assumed a firing position, her movements fluid and precise, betraying countless hours of training behind the calm facade. A sudden crack shattered the stillness, sharp, precise, and resonant. The tiny projectile sped through the air, cutting a clean path toward the distant target. The soldiers' eyes followed the trajectory, some leaning forward in disbelief, others holding their breath. The general's sneer faltered for just a moment, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. The bullet struck true, sending a ripple of sound as it pinged against the steel plate dead center. A ripple of astonishment spread through the ranks, whispers replacing the silence. The young woman remained poised, her expression unreadable as she prepared for the next shot. The general's eyes darkened, a subtle tension threading through his muscles as the possibility of being proven wrong settled uncomfortably in his mind. She fired again, then again, each shot finding its mark with unerring accuracy. The small weapon, once dismissed as a mere toy, revealed itself as an instrument of remarkable precision. The soldiers around her exchanged glances, their earlier mockery giving way to a grudging respect that grew with every bullet that struck its target. The general's jaw clenched, his pride battling with the undeniable evidence before him. The air buzzed with a new energy, an electric charge born of shattered assumptions and emerging truths. The young woman's calm endurance stood in stark contrast to the general's mounting disbelief. The crowd's laughter had vanished, replaced by murmurs of approval and awe. The weapon in her hands, diminutive and unassuming, had become a symbol of unexpected power and skill. For a moment, the general said nothing, his eyes locked on the small weapon and the steady hand that wielded it. His challenge had been met, not with brash defiance or empty bravado, but with quiet mastery that spoke louder than any words could. The soldiers sensed the shift in his demeanor, the slow erasure of the contempt that had once filled the space between them. Finally, the general stepped closer, his voice low and edged with reluctant respect. "I underestimated you," he admitted, the words heavy with the weight of his previous doubt. The crowd around them held its breath, sensing the significance of his concession. "Appearances can be deceiving," he added, his gaze lingering on the weapon. "True skill isn't measured by size or spectacle, but by precision and control." The young woman nodded, a faint smile touching her lips, not of triumph, but of quiet vindication. The soldiers around her began to murmur appreciatively, their expressions softening from skepticism to admiration. The general's acknowledgement rippled through the group, elevating her from the subject of ridicule to a figure worthy of respect. The small weapon, once dismissed as a gimmick, had proven its worth not through grand gestures but through unyielding accuracy and the steady hand of its bearer. The training ground, moments ago filled with laughter and doubt, now hummed with a renewed sense of possibility. The young woman stood at its center, no longer merely a curiosity, but a testament to the power of confidence and the unexpected. In that charged atmosphere, the soldiers learned a lesson beyond marksmanship, that courage to stand firm in the face of doubt and the willingness to accept challenges head-on can transform even the most underestimated tools into instruments of greatness. The general's scorn had given way to respect, and the young woman's quiet strength had carved a place for her in their midst. The midday sun continued its relentless climb, casting long shadows that stretched over the field. Yet, within the circle of soldiers, a new light flickered, one that illuminated the truth beneath appearances and the latent potential waiting to be discovered. The young woman's challenge had begun, and with each steady shot fired, she rewrote the narrative that had once sought to confine her to the margins of their world. The reverberations of each shot still lingered in the air, the sharp echoes fading into the steady hum of the training ground resuming its rhythm. Yet, beneath the surface of awe and shifting respect, a deeper story began to take shape, a narrative woven from long hours, quiet determination, and the faith of a mentor who saw beyond convention. As the soldiers' skeptical eyes softened and their murmurs grew more appreciative, the young woman lowered the small weapon, cradling it gently once again. Her gaze drifted momentarily to the horizon, where the sun hung heavy but unyielding, casting its relentless light over the landscape. In that brief moment, memory stirred, fragments of a time when training was not a public trial but a secret ritual, practiced in the shadows away from prying eyes. She recalled the long evenings spent in a secluded clearing, far from the bustle of the base. There, under the watchful eye of an older, wiry man whose face bore the lines of countless campaigns, she had first held the small weapon. His voice had been steady, patient, as he guided her hands and sharpened her instincts, imparting lessons that transcended the mechanics of firing. Precision, he had told her, is not just about hitting a target. It's about understanding your tool, your environment, and yourself. Those hours had been solitary and demanding, each session peeling back layers of doubt and hesitation. The mentor had believed in unconventional tactics, in tools that defied the expectations of traditional warfare. The small weapon was more than a curiosity, it was a carefully engineered instrument of deception and accuracy, designed to catch enemies off guard and shift the balance in unpredictable ways. The young woman's fingers traced the contours of the weapon now as if drawing strength from its memory. It had been disguised intentionally, its innocuous appearance a deliberate ruse to lull opponents into underestimating its capabilities. The mentor's faith in her had been unwavering, even when others dismissed the idea as folly. The battlefield is not won by brute force alone, he had said, but by cleverness, adaptability, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. Around her, the soldiers began to sense the weight of this hidden history. The laughter had faded, replaced by a quiet attentiveness that suggested a growing recognition. This was no mere demonstration, but the unveiling of a philosophy that challenged their ingrained beliefs. The small weapon was a symbol of that philosophy, its precision a testament to the power of unconventional thinking. The general, still watching with a mixture of skepticism and newfound respect, glanced toward the young woman's distant expression. He could see the layers beneath her calm exterior, the hours of practice, the discipline, and the trust placed in a tool that defied appearances. His mind grappled with the realization that true skill often required more than the obvious, that innovation could come cloaked in simplicity. As the wind stirred, carrying dust and the faint metallic scent of spent cartridges, the young woman's voice broke the silence, steady and clear. She spoke of the mentor who had shaped her training, of the belief that mastery was as much about understanding as it was about power. Her words painted a picture of quiet resolve and the forging of a bond between weapon and wielder, a bond that transcended mere mechanics. The soldiers listened, their expressions shifting from doubt to contemplation. They began to see the small weapon not as a novelty, but as an extension of her skill and determination, a compact device that required not brute strength, but finesse and unwavering focus. The atmosphere changed subtly, the earlier mockery replaced by a respect that stemmed from understanding the depth of commitment behind the performance. The mentor's approach had been unorthodox, teaching tactics that emphasized deception and precision over sheer firepower. The small weapon was central to this philosophy, its design enabling shots at astonishing distances, with accuracy that could surprise even the most seasoned marksman. It was a tool that demanded patience and discipline, qualities the young woman had honed through countless hours of secret practice. She recalled the quiet nights spent perfecting her aim beneath a canopy of stars, the whispered encouragements and corrections from the mentor, and the slow transformation from uncertainty to mastery. Each shot had been a step toward confidence, each success a quiet rebellion against the doubts cast by those who could not see the potential hidden in the small weapon's form. Around her, the soldiers began to exchange looks tinged with admiration. The story unfolding before them was more than a display of marksmanship, it was a lesson in perseverance and the courage to believe in the unorthodox. The young woman's journey resonated with the universal truth that skill and innovation often arise from the willingness to challenge the familiar and embrace new possibilities. The general, absorbing the narrative, found himself reconsidering the rigid assumptions that had guided his command. The young woman's calm mastery and the weapon's precision were not anomalies but evidence of a strategy that could shift the dynamics of combat. His earlier scorn softened into a reluctant acknowledgement that adaptation and innovation were as vital as strength and numbers. As the sun climbed higher, casting its unyielding glare, the young woman prepared to demonstrate once more. But this time, the act was not merely about proving the weapon's worth, it was about embodying the philosophy of her mentor and the countless hours of unseen dedication. Each movement was deliberate, each breath measured, reflecting an intimate understanding forged in solitude and perseverance. The soldiers watched, no longer as skeptics but as witnesses to a transformation, the emergence of a new paradigm where small, precise tools could command respect and change outcomes. The laughter and doubt that had once filled the air were replaced by a quiet reverence, an acknowledgement of the power that lay in discipline and innovation. In that moment, the young woman was not just a sharpshooter but a bearer of a legacy built on belief in the unconventional, on the quiet strength found in mastery, and on the courage to stand firm against skepticism. The small weapon in her hand symbolized more than technology, it represented a mindset, a commitment to excellence that transcended appearances. The training ground, once a place of derision, had become a crucible where old assumptions melted away, revealing a deeper truth. The young woman's journey illuminated the path forward, inviting those who watched to reconsider what it meant to be strong, skilled, and worthy of respect. The story she carried was one of transformation, resilience, and the power of belief, an enduring reminder that greatness often hides in the most unexpected forms. The air hung heavy with anticipation as the young woman steadied herself once more, the small weapon cradled firmly in her hands. The sun's harsh glare bore down relentlessly, casting long shadows that stretched across the cracked earth and shimmered off the distant steel targets. Around her, the soldiers stood silent, their earlier whispers replaced by an expectant stillness that seemed to press in from all sides. The general's eyes narrowed, a flicker of doubt and incredulity crossing his weathered face as he watched the scene unfold. She raised the weapon carefully, aligning the sight with the farthest plate, a mere glint of metal resting hundreds of meters beyond the training ground's edge. The weight of the moment settled over her like a cloak, but her hands remained steady, her breathing measured and calm. The soldiers held their collective breath, their faces a mosaic of disbelief, curiosity, and a dawning respect. The trigger clicked softly, a sound almost swallowed by the vastness of the field. Then came the shot, a precise, sharp crack that cut through the air with decisive clarity. The bullet sliced through the distance, a tiny, swift messenger of skill and resolve. When it struck, the steel plate rang with a clear, ringing ping that echoed across the field, the sound sharp and triumphant. A ripple of astonishment swept through the gathered soldiers. Eyes widened, jaws slackened, and the general's smirk faltered, replaced by a subtle but unmistakable shadow of disbelief. The young woman's calm demeanor remained, a quiet contrast to the sudden shift in energy around her. She did not celebrate or boast, instead, she simply prepared for the next shot, her focus unbroken. The crowd watched, mesmerized, as she fired again, then again. Each shot found its mark with unwavering precision, the bullet striking the steel plate's dead center, time after time. The distance was staggering, beyond what most had believed possible with such a small weapon. The soldiers exchanged glances, their skepticism melting into awe. Whispers spread like wildfire, carrying words of admiration and incredulity through the ranks. The general's expression darkened, a tension tightening his jaw as he struggled to reconcile the undeniable proof before him with his entrenched doubts. His eyes, sharp and searching, traced the trajectory of each bullet, unwilling to dismiss what his senses clearly witnessed. The young woman's skill was undeniable, and the small weapon's true nature, once hidden beneath its unassuming exterior, had been laid bare. For the first time, the soldiers saw beyond the diminutive frame of the weapon to the sophisticated engineering and lethal potential it contained. The laughter and mockery that had filled the air moments before were now replaced by a reverent silence, punctuated only by the steady rhythm of the shots and the soft clatter of spent casings hitting the ground. The training ground, once a stage for ridicule, had become a theater of revelation. The young woman's eyes flicked up briefly, meeting the general's gaze with a quiet confidence that neither challenged nor provoked. There was no need, the shots spoke for themselves. Her mastery was not born of bravado but of discipline, of countless hours honing her craft in the shadows where failure was met with silence and success with solitude. The general took a step forward, his heavy boots stirring small clouds of dust. The soldiers parted instinctively, sensing the unspoken significance of his movement. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and edged with reluctant respect. "Your skill and that weapon's precision, it's beyond what I imagined possible. I was wrong to dismiss it." A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the crowd. The general's admission carried weight, shifting the tide of opinion among the soldiers. The young woman stood silently, her posture composed but proud, embodying the quiet strength that had earned her this moment of recognition. The soldiers began to applaud, their claps tentative at first but growing in confidence and volume. The respect they now held was not just for the weapon's capabilities but for the courage and dedication it represented. The young woman's demonstration had shattered assumptions, proving that true power often lay hidden beneath unassuming surfaces. As the applause echoed across the training ground, the young woman lowered the weapon, the small device resting once more in her hands like a secret kept close. The general's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer, a complex mix of emotions flickering across his features, admiration, humility, and perhaps a hint of envy. The soldiers around them exchanged looks, their earlier doubts transformed into inspiration. They saw in the young woman's precision and calm a lesson that extended beyond marksmanship, that perseverance, innovation, and quiet confidence could overturn even the most deeply held prejudices. The small weapon had become a symbol, its success a testament to the power of belief and skill. The sun continued its arc, casting shifting shadows that danced across the field. The young woman's demonstration had not only proven the weapon's worth but had also begun to reshape the mindset of those who watched. The training ground, once a place of scorn, now buzzed with renewed energy and possibility. In this charged atmosphere, the young woman prepared to move forward, her journey far from over. The shot she had fired echoed not just in the distance, but in the minds of those present, a challenge to rethink what was possible. The small weapon, once dismissed as a gimmick, now stood as a beacon of unexpected strength and precision. The general's voice broke through the murmurs once more, quieter now but no less firm. "Appearances can be deceiving. True skill transcends assumptions." His words settled over the crowd like a benediction, a reminder that courage and mastery often defy expectation. The soldiers nodded, their respect solidified. The young woman's place among them was no longer questioned, she had earned it with every steady shot. The small weapon, held lightly in her hands, was no longer a toy but a testament to the power of confidence, focus, and the courage to challenge the conventional. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the training ground, the atmosphere remained charged with quiet triumph. The demonstration had not only revealed the weapon's capabilities but had also ignited a spark within the soldiers, a spark of openness to change and a deeper understanding of strength's many forms. The young woman stood at the center of this transformation, a figure of calm resolve surrounded by the shifting tides of respect and possibility. The story unfolding was far from over, but in this moment, she embodied the truth that skill, patience, and belief could shatter doubt and open the way for something extraordinary. The murmurs of the soldiers rippled through the air, a wave of shifting tides that carried with it newfound respect and acknowledgement. The general, standing rigid in the center of the formation, inhaled deeply, a deliberate act of concession that seemed to release the weight of his earlier skepticism. "I was wrong," he confessed, the words low but steady, carrying the gravity of a man accustomed to command and conviction. "Appearances can indeed be deceiving." The soldiers, once quick to ridicule, now exchanged glances that reflected a growing admiration. The transformation was palpable, a collective crossing from doubt to respect, from dismissal to recognition. The young woman, standing at the heart of this change, held the small weapon with a quiet dignity that spoke volumes. It was no longer a mere object of curiosity but a symbol of something far greater, the triumph of skill, the power of confidence, and the unyielding spirit to challenge the expected. Around them, the training ground seemed to shift in tone. The harsh midday sun, which had earlier cast sharp shadows and revealed the starkness of the battlefield, now bathed the scene in a warmer light. The dust that had swirled with laughter and derision settled gently, as if acknowledging the transformation taking place. The soldiers' claps began softly, hesitant at first, then swelling into a robust chorus of approval that echoed across the expanse. The general's gaze remained fixed on the young woman, a flicker of respect softening the lines of his weathered face. His voice, when he spoke again, carried a new weight. "True skill transcends assumptions," he said, the declaration resonating beyond the assembled ranks. "It is not the size of the weapon, but the hand that wields it and the heart behind it that defines strength." The young woman's expression softened into a slight smile, not one of triumph, but of quiet vindication. She had sought no glory, only the chance to prove what she had long believed, that confidence and mastery could turn the underestimated into the formidable. Her journey, marked by patience and perseverance, now stood as a testament to the power of belief in oneself and the tools one chooses to carry. The soldiers around her nodded, their faces reflecting a new understanding. The small weapon, once the subject of sneers and jokes, had become a beacon of unexpected strength. It was a reminder that innovation and courage often take forms that defy tradition, that the greatest potential sometimes lies hidden beneath the surface. In the midst of the applause, the young woman felt a surge of connection, not just to the soldiers who now respected her, but to the mentor whose guidance had shaped her path. The lessons imparted in secret, the hours spent honing her skills away from prying eyes, had culminated in this moment of acknowledgement. The weapon was more than a tool, it was a legacy of belief in the unconventional and the unseen. The general stepped forward, his posture less rigid, his tone warmer. "Your demonstration challenges us all," he admitted. "It reminds us that strength is multifaceted and that respect must be earned through dedication, not assumed through tradition." His words, sincere and measured, sank deep into the hearts of those present. The crowd's energy shifted from skepticism to inspiration. Soldiers began to share stories of their own experiences with doubt and perseverance, the atmosphere growing rich with camaraderie and mutual respect. The young woman, once isolated by disbelief, now found herself embraced as a symbol of resilience and innovation. The training ground, a place that had witnessed countless displays of power and discipline, bore silent witness to this transformation. The small weapon, resting lightly in her hands, had become a catalyst for change, not just in perception but in the very fabric of the soldier's understanding. It embodied the truth that courage and skill often reside where least expected. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues that softened the harsh landscape, the young woman stood tall amid the applause and newfound respect. Her journey was far from over, but in this moment, she embodied a timeless truth, that the power to change minds and hearts lies not in appearances but in the unwavering commitment to one's convictions. The soldiers around her absorbed this lesson, their spirits lifted by the realization that strength is not confined to the familiar. The small weapon, once dismissed as a toy, had proven its worth and, in doing so, had elevated all who witnessed its power. The general's acknowledgement echoed in the quiet that followed, a lasting reminder that respect and kindness, though sometimes overlooked, always return with undeniable force. The young woman's presence became a living testament to the idea that legacy is not merely inherited but forged through courage and perseverance. Her story was one of transformation, not only of the weapon she wielded but of the perceptions and hearts of those who once doubted her. The training ground held its breath, recognizing that in the quiet confidence of one, the strength of many had been awakened. In this charged silence, the soldiers found inspiration to look beyond the obvious, to challenge their assumptions, and to embrace the unexpected. The young woman's journey illuminated the path forward, a path where courage, innovation, and respect intertwine, shaping a future where the underestimated rise and legacies endure.